to the music scene, showing lots of love for the community. With great advice, I know who I should go see. So all around town radio show, that's where I go for the latest band info.
All right. Hey, welcome everybody. It's a nooner here at All Around Town Radio.
Nooner.
We're live in the studio, and we're attempting to make some technical issues go away here. So hopefully we'll be able to get through this one. Welcome to the program today, Chris and Jim. How you guys doing?
Hey, what's happening, Scott? Thanks for having us.
Doing great.
What's going on? We're going to talk about a fun show you've got going on this weekend, but I want a little backgrounder first. Let's talk about this project you have called Synth Monkey, and how did it come to play, man?
I found myself listening to a lot of Pandora radio, kind of 80s, and every time anybody'd get in the car, they'd be like, man, you really like the 80s. And then, the concept just kind of started with, there wasn't a lot of people about a year and a half ago doing 80s stuff. So it was just, and I was never really a big fan of the rubber bracelet like Madonna 80s. I more liked, the psychedelic furs and New Order and that kind of stuff, like the new wave side of 80s. So I was listening to a lot of that. And then I just started playing it for friends. And then, I don't know, I kind of started goofing around with it at the house, and I got a drum machine, and I'd put a big synth sound on, and I'd do 1999. I'm like, man, that's really cool. With just a keyboard and a drum machine, I could probably goof with this doing a solo thing. But it just morphed into more and more. And then I started building tracks. And I thought, well, this would be a good song for tracks. So I ended up with like 70 or 80 tracks. And this was just post-COVID, by the way. So I ended up with like 70 or 80 tracks, and I thought this would be a lot of fun. So I did one or two of them by myself, and it was just kind of dull. So then I brought Jim in here, and Jim plays with a couple other bands too. He plays with another 3-piece that we do. But I thought it'd be really fun to have like an electronic drummer to play along with. So he kind of joined in, and then we started programming lights, and now every song has its own light show program. So it just kind of went off the deep end programming wise, and we just started having fun with it. We did it out a couple of times, and people loved it, so we're now putting it out there. So
just a 2-piece, then both of you guys?
That's it. I have 6 vintage keyboards that I bring out, stuff that's from the 80s and 90s. Yeah.
Stacked.
2 stands with 3 keyboards each. It looks ridiculous. And then we built Jim a custom drum kind of thing from a big wraparound stand. So he's got 2 or 3 sets of electronic drums put together that we built custom, just so he'd have all the different kits from the music from that era. So he actually stands and plays them. He's a better dancer than I am, so I try to dance as little as possible. But we just kind of, we're doing everything from like Depeche Mode and all that heavy keyboard is 80s synthesizer stuff from the era. So it's a lot of fun. A lot of lights, a lot of PA.
Well, I was gonna lead in there with that. Then, what can people expect to hear? Because there's so many, there's so many '80s bands out there. You hear the '80s tribute, the glam bands, the pop '80s. But what kind of songs are they going to expect to hear in your set list if they come see this show this weekend?
So, I mean, it kind of stretches the gamut. If you imagine, like Personal Jesus, Depeche Mode, and Blue Monday, Pet Shop Boys. Yeah, I mean, and we do anything that's keyboard based. So even things like I'm Not in Love, right? 10cc, or what else is Axel F, the instrumental thing. So we do lots of weird, obscure stuff. Eddie Grant, Electric Avenue.
Wow. All right.
It's a huge variety, but just think anything that's keyboard based. Jump, Van Halen, if it's got a big keyboard presence, we're probably doing it.
You know, I don't know if I've ever heard anybody do Electric Avenue out there, cover it. So
Oh, we
that's
love
kind of
it.
cool.
Great.
He kills it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And hi, Chad. Thanks for joining us today.
What's up, Chad?
If you're out there, guys, say hey. Let us know who you are, where you're from. I see Kara checking in. Sherry's checking in as well on the Book of Face. If you're on the YouTube, say hi to us as well. So guys, I mean, that's a lofty goal to take on because some of those songs you're talking about, first of all,
Well, we're
take
doing
some.
Dolby also. She blinded me with science.
Yeah,
stuff
those
like
songs are super complex.
They are.
Some of these songs took 20 and 25 hours to put together. Jim would come to the house. We'd analyze the song. We would start with a drum track, and then we would work backwards. We would sort of say what sticks out. What sticks out of the mix? Like, what does it have to have? It has to have this. It's got this big string bed. It has this huge lead line. So I decide, what do I need to play live? What do we need to put in? Some of the tracks were unbelievably simple. And She Was is a good example. The one was moving, she was. Any of those kind of songs are real simple. You've got a bass, you've got a guitar, you've got a real simple drum track. And then we just start pulling out the parts that we want to do live. So we build this giant synth track. And then we pull out songs that are live. But then there are songs like Pet Shop Boys, like West End Girls. I mean, there's probably 30 tracks in that song.
Yeah, that's hugely complex. It is. And
NCC's another one. One of Jim's favorite songs is I'm Not in Love.
Me too, Jim. I vote for that one too. All right.
Well,
Love
great.
that.
I get to do the mid vocal voice there.
Just because.
Right.
Yeah.
I do that whole line through there. And I love the song.
That's kind of like Eat Fresh.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, two guys doing all this. I mean, that's a monumental undertaking. It is. And you guys don't do this as often as, I mean, at least talking to you, Chris, this is kind of a special thing when you do play it out.
I'll tell you why. We want to do it
Yeah.
a lot more, but finding the places to do it, we tried it at Monkey Bar, and the show went real well until it was time to end. And they say, okay, you got an hour to pack out. I'm like, okay, it's a 2.5 hour setup. I mean, just when you've got lights that are all programmed and you've got teleprompters and you've got, fog and you've got front lights and you got 6 keyboards and an electronic drum set, we literally had to drag all that stuff out into the parking lot and pack it out there. So we need to find places. And that's why I really appreciate your help. We need to find places that are show based. Like we were doing that show down at OTR, the OTR Stillhouse for the country band. And that's a perfect place because we can go in the day before, set it up, and we can even tear it down the day after if we choose. So those are the kind of shows we're trying to do the Synth Monkey thing for.
Well, can I talk about Tiffany?
Yeah.
We opened up for Tiffany back in March.
Something like that. Yep, springtime.
Was it in a mall?
No, it was actually at the Knot, the Weather Knot place down in really cool outdoor venue in Kentucky.
Yeah.
But we went down there and had to set up real early.
We opened up for her. She came on, performed, and then we closed for her. So we played.
Yeah. But again,
a great show. Everybody loved us there.
It was couple hours set up, and then we brought her in. So we had to be able to quickly get her incorporated once she got there. And then once she was done, we helped her break that down real quick. Played a couple of, just DJ'd songs, and then went on, did about another hour for that. Those are the kind of shows that this works well for. Opening up for, I always say, you're either playing for people on their way up or on their way down. So it's we can do either one, but a lot of times these 80s guys, it's a lot of fun to play for people like Tiffany, and that was a blast, that show. So.
That used to be one of my favorite statements to people, was that you meet the same people going up the ladder as you do coming back down. And those artists that were super huge back in the 80s now are trying their best to stay relevant and play. And that's why I joked about the mall thing, because I mean, Tiffany was made in the mall, her videos and all that, and singing in the mall. And she's still, I've seen her lately. She's got it. I mean, she sings well and still does a great show. So does Deborah Gibson.
That guitar player
Really?
she works with, I mean, they're even writing new stuff, and the new stuff's really good too. They're good live. They're really nice people. It's a lot of fun.
He had to run sound for him. That whole show was
It was great.
our production.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm gonna change gears, Chris. I gotta ask you though. This is a production you two are putting on. This is not your cover band that comes in and plays '80s tunes at night. This sounds like it's a major deal for you to put one of these shows on.
If you saw the technical side, everybody just like, why are you doing it? And I think it's honestly, it comes down to our love of kind of that music and that whole era. We're both on in-ears, so each of us has a big part of the backing track. Jim will have his drums, his vocal. I have my keys and my vocal to a little bit larger extent. But we're mixing it live on stage. We're mixing our ears. All the effects are there. We're taking in our own PA. There is a 16-piece light show, like I said, that is tied into every song. So every song, when we do Karma Chameleon, we've got red, gold, and green lights that sweep down every time we sing red, gold, and green. And it's just a matter of taking the time to go in and program every one of those things. So the stops, like on Personal Jesus, your own personal, I mean, those kind of blinks, that makes a difference. That makes it feel like the 80s. And one more thing we try to leave as a surprise, but I'll give you a teaser on it. We have a giant screen behind us where in between the sets, I play old 80s music videos, and they're the same kinds of videos that we do. I'm only human, those kind of songs, those big, gorgeous videos from back in the day in full VCR quality. And then the best part is in between each of the songs, I've recorded and stolen from the internet a whole bunch of commercials from the 80s. Come see the softer side of Sears. Where's the beef? The 1986 Mercury Lynx commercial. It's terrible and it's hysterical. But those songs, the tab commercials, all that stuff, it takes you right back to the 80s. I mean, you are right back to like, oh my God, I remember what Charlie perfume smells like, that kind of thing. So that sounds to me like a great trip back in time. And I love the 80s. I think I'd love the show. I went to an event not too long ago where they just had a DJ there playing 80s, and he was putting those videos up behind some of that old school stuff. There's
and it was, everybody was like, yeah.
There's so many good groups that do it. Like even the Whammies have their, they're actually playing through a click track, I believe. I hope I'm not getting this wrong, but they're actually playing to the videos. So they've learned the song just as the video is there. And it's awesome because you're like, oh my gosh, I remember that song. So you get to hear the music live, but then watch the music video at the same time. It's such a great time technology-wise for two Muppets like us to be able to put something heavy tech like this together and go out and do it. But you do spend thousands to make hundreds, let's be honest. I mean, we're not buying golden undercrackers on this endeavor, I'll tell you that.
Well, and I was going to say too, and a lot of our viewers on the show, we have a lot of discussions on our different shows throughout the week, and a lot of people hating on backing tracks. And you mentioned backing tracks, but you built all these. This is not you going and buying the karaoke track and singing along to it. No.
Yeah. And if you hear these tracks, they stand strong on their own. We spent 2.5 hours one night. You know what song I'm going to say, don't you?
Are you talking about the drum fill?
Don't You Forget About Me. Last song of the night. The drum fill.
It's a key fill at the end of the song that
every drummer knows, and every drummer knows it. And if it's not right, they'll just throw stuff at you. So it's like da 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 la 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 la. Sorry, I got allergies.
I had to play it recorded on one key with fingers.
I mean, ghost notes, flams, everything. We had to slow it down and do it in, really slow timing so that we got that fill exactly right. Da 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 da. It has to be right or it doesn't sound like the song. So
absolutely.
The fill with my fingers. So
yeah, it was a lot of work, but we really did do a lot of that. Like things like Psychedelic Furs. There's a lot of those songs that a karaoke track never gets that stuff right. You'll have like a cheesy guitar and a bass line, But those songs, when the Furs did it, we just saw the Furs live here recently, and they were tremendous. Haven't lost a step. But all of those kinds of sounds, it's unbelievably important to do that. And what I did is I used a program that allows me to go and search for those sounds. So I'm looking for the whistle part on Word Up. So I have to go and find that sound and then pull that down and put it in. It's not just a synth. It's not just a string. It's a specific like roll and string sound that they use for this. So we try and make that stuff as accurate as possible because we want every song, even down to the effects of each song. We want even the effects to feel like that song, you know.
I got you. All right. Well, let's talk about the event on Friday then. You're playing a show, and this is the first one in a while, right, that you've done?
Yeah.
So
we're going to be forgetting
words
and things like that. So come tuned up. It'll sound even better. Yeah, we haven't played in a while. It's just like I say, it's been tough to try to find places that we want to be that'll allow us the freedom to come in, set up ahead of time, do a big heavy tech thing. Ask Jim Cuesta about that, you know, like down doing the Genesis show. It's no fun for anybody if it's not right on the tech side. So we need places that are going to let us come in and do a tech heavy show and get prepared so that the show is fun and we're not constantly fixing problems, you know. So
speaking of Jim, have you seen that Genesis show yet?
Yes.
The Genesis retouched.
I've
seen video
I saw it at the Madison, and
Yes.
I was absolutely blown away.
Me too. I just can't even say enough about that. And talk about putting effort into it, just like you're talking about doing.
Yeah.
Jim is one of those, just, I call him the music professor for a reason. I mean, he absolutely, and he builds those sounds too.
Yeah.
And that's part of his business.
An
Is,
entire side
Yeah.
business where he builds main stage platforms for people, and they're unbelievably accurate. But you know who was the star of that show to me, who I was absolutely, I can't say I was surprised by, but I was pleasantly blown away, was Adam. He came out and fronted that band as Phil Collins, and he didn't just capture sort of the sound. He grabbed a lot of those vocal stylings, and you could tell he had listened to a lot of live Phil stuff. It was very, very cool. I walked out of there with the biggest dumb smile on my face, you know.
Me too. It was a great show,
and
man.
Butterfield and Todd Buck, the tech side of that, it was flawless. And you take a show like that, I've always said you could have a really great band and a bad sound guy and a bad light guy, and everybody has a bad night. You could take a mediocre band with a great sound guy and a great light guy, and it makes up for a lot. They can cover a lot of mistakes. They can hide a lot of imperfections and looseness and stuff like that. But man, those two were on their game that night. It was an incredible show. I can't wait to see what else they do. You know.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And let's hit on your show here. That's coming up at Bleachers 2.0 on Friday night.
Yeah.
Sorry, we got on a tangent but yeah, I mean, Todd Buck is like an alien when it comes to sound. He's got superhuman ears and everything else. We'll get back to that, but let's talk about your show here if we can.
Yeah.
And let's get to that. Bleachers 2.0. So first one for a while. Give them the specifics on this show, if you will, guys.
I believe it's 9 to 1. We're ready to start as early as 8:30. So if a giant tour bus full of bachelorettes come in at 8:30, we can start then. But we'll just kind of be ready to rock from 9 to 1. I'm not sure of the set lists and the break times yet, but we're just going to incorporate some of the dance music inside there. We've got a lot of merch to sell too. We're doing Synth Monkey cozies, and look at that Synth Monkey. You need a Synth Monkey keychain, beer koozie, shirts, all that kind of stuff. So just to make sure we don't leave with any money, we bought a lot of stuff to sell. So that's all paid for. So come and bring your wallet.
So in Crescent Springs, Kentucky, it's just down near Florence, y'all, right? Down in that area.
Right across from Florence, y'all.
Yeah, and it's Synth Monkey. You'll be live this Friday night, 9 p.m. if you want to catch that show. Now, is there a cover, any tickets available, any of that, or is it just walk in and have a great night?
I don't know if there's a cover there or not. I think it's $5. I might be wrong. I think it's $5. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure if you get there before a certain time, there's probably not a cover, but I'm not sure. I do think it's $5. I was amazed at the drink prices there. As they're pretty reasonable. Our tab was, I had a lot of fun, and our tab was still pretty low. So last time I was there, so it's a great place to come and party.
Perfect. Well, let's talk about how people can find you guys on the socials out there, if you will.
Yeah, you can go to Facebook and search Synth Monkey, and then you can send an email to, I think it's synthmonkeyband@gmail.com. You can call Jim's hotline no, I'm just kidding. You can also visit the website at synthmonkey.com as well. And that just gives you booking information and things like that. It's a super easy band to book. Just give us a lot of time ahead of time and maybe a little bit of time afterwards, stuff like that. And we'd love to come out and entertain you.
Perfect. And Chris, this isn't your only project. Obviously, you've got a lot going on out there. You mentioned the country band earlier.
Yeah.
Coyote Ridge, if I'm correct.
Yes, sir. I have a few. Jim has a few. Jim's playing with Rick Stacy. He plays with My Day Off. K9 Jack, and I play with Coyote Ridge Band, which is a 3-piece country thing, and it's pretty extraordinary. And I say 3-piece, I'll explain that in a sec. And then Jim and I also play in a band called Chris Runnels Band. It looks like this, and that is a 3-piece as well. And what we do is kind of the adult contemporary side of classic rock. I like to call it wuss rock. Just for lack of a better term, because it's all the stuff that, kind of the musically edgier side of soft rock. If you take Michael McDonald and Kenny Loggins and some of the softer stuff like that, and then you add a little bit of the Average White Band and some of those kind of things, it gets pretty interesting.
Charlie Daniels.
Yeah, I mean, we go all the way to country, to dance, to classic rock and things like that in that band. So I said 3-piece, and I'll explain. Everybody always criticizes when they watch our videos. They're like, "Oh, where's your bass player?" I play left-hand bass. I use a keyboard program that allows me to split my keyboard, and then I send my left hand off to a Mac computer, and there's a bass guitar in there run through a separate channel. So I've got keys here, bass in the left hand.
While he sings over top of that. So
yeah. I'm kind of like a monkey, with the cymbals and things like that. So I play keys and then left hand bass and sing, and then Jim and Don both sing in the Chris Runnels Band. But that 3-piece thing seems to work really well for us because, as all keyboard players and bass players are annoyed by, keyboard players tend to play over the bass player in their left hand anyway. So I thought, until we can find a bass player that wants to join and make $8 a night, which is our going rate, we'll
for
just
everything.
Yeah. So we'll just keep doing this as a 3-piece. And it's worked out really well because it keeps the music really tight too. And the Coyote Ridge is the same thing. Piano, left-hand bass, Kenny Hill on guitar, and Kenny Holy Cross Jr. on drums. So that's amazing because you got 3 lead singers, and we're doing Restless Heart and Little Texas and Diamond Rio, and it's pretty cool. So,
it was really good.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
And you can go to that page. That's Coyote Ridge Band. I think it's Coyote Ridge Band on Facebook and online. So.
And I will say, if you're going to get inundated now with calls from bass players, if you offered $8 a night, I mean, that's a good wage.
Yeah. And I'll even buy you a beer.
It is. No, let's go back. I want to digress just a minute.
Okay.
Again, why this style of 80s music? Because nobody else is doing that, Chris. I mean, I'm telling you out there, I've seen lots of bands cover lots of 80s songs. Yeah. But those are songs that are so difficult that most bands don't want to put the time and effort into it, for one. And for two, they're just not mainstream. The girls just want to have fun stuff, So why that? Why did you pick it?
I think there are a lot of fun songs that the 80s brought out. This is definitely the darker side of the 80s music. That being said, I think for me, stylistically, the stuff that I found myself wanting to listen to, you remember a band called The Church? Sometimes when this place gets kind of empty, under the Milky Way tonight.
Great
That's
song.
that's kind of the stuff that we like, is that real dark, musically heavier, edgier stuff. And I think what lends itself well to this project is because we can go in and recreate that entire thing. We can make sure that the snare sound that Jim is using is just like the record was. And if you think of the bands that are covering, that are awesome, that are doing this, the Whammies and Vinyl Countdown, all these other bands, it's like they might be limited to a snare drum. And how do you use the same snare for West End Girls that you're going to use for Living on a Prayer? It just doesn't fly. So that's why we picked this genre, because when you're playing Axel F, it's clearly a drum machine. So we want to make sure his snare drum is that little paper thin, slappy snare. And then when we're playing other songs like Drive from the Cars, you've got that "Who's Gonna Drive You Home," and that snare drum goes on for days. So we make sure that all of those sounds are a part of that song. And that would be tough to do for a 4 or 5 piece band without 2 or 3 keyboard players. So I think we found ourselves in this genre. We found ourselves picking songs based on our ability to recreate them as a product and then bring them out and then play those songs live. We're kind of playing along with them, obviously. We're not pretending that we're playing all this stuff live, and make no qualms about it. It's like we're just trying to give you the best kind of musical experience that we can, using 2 people, so.
Right. And the experience, like you said, I think is the big factor in that. And Jim, I've got a question. Somebody posted here a minute ago. I think it was Chad. Let me put it up. Yeah. Chad said, "You're the greatest stand-up drummer of all time." Do you stand all night and play?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Chris has to stand all night, so I felt sorry for him. I saw an old Howard Johnson video back from the 80s, and the drummer had a stand-up drum kit, and Howard Jones. I'm sorry. Yeah, Howard Jones. I'm sorry. And I said to Chris, "What do you think of a stand-up drum kit?"
Yeah, you're not as hot as Sheila E., but it works. We just wanted to have something that, because there's 2 of us, we wanted to be able to create a little bit more energy too. So we literally bought a stand-up accessory drum rack and then built it around. So we bought all the poles, all the pieces, all the clamps, 2 or 3 different drum kits worth. And you've got 12 or 15 drums kind of going on, right. 3 cymbals, hi-hats, pedals, all of that kind of stuff. And then we've got an accessory board too for anything that's important, like the Prince hand claps on Little Red Corvette. I don't know, if you know 80s, you know that clap. That's not a standard drum machine hand clap. That's a very distinct sound. Little Red Corvette, clap, clap. It has to be right there. So he's got those samples loaded on a pad, and it's easier for him to stand up and move a little bit. And he sings. Both of us use headset microphones just because we're kind of moving around constantly. Ooh, and one other fun thing.
And wait, there's more.
But I've also got a vocoder, and that to me is one of the coolest things that isn't around anymore. So I have a live vocoder, and if you don't know what that is, think TalkBox, but instead of your guitar creating that sound that you shape with your mouth, you press a chord on the keys and then you sing it into the microphone. The mic goes into the keyboard and plays that part. Think Roger Troutman, "I can make you dance if you want me to," more bounce to the ounce, all that stuff. Right. That's a vocoder. So we do a lot of that in the show. And that's a lot of fun. A lot of those songs work really well with the vocoders.
I love the interaction because I'm able to stand up and like Shelly or some of the other girls that come out and dance, and we get to interact with them. And I can, kind of.
And he and I kind of face each other a little bit, so we're able to work off of each other. So that's fun.
It sounds like an incredible show, fellas. And if you could recap it here in about 30 seconds or so, give everybody your sales pitch on Synth Monkey this weekend, about now.
Yeah, come out and see Synth Monkey down at Bleachers 2.0. It's a lot of fun. One of the greatest musical generations. Those 80s songs, those early 80s keyboard songs, come out and relive that whole generation with us. Bring your 80s clothes, your Madonna bracelets.
cowboy hats,
Cowboy hats.
sunglasses.
The the jackets, remember the big long leather coats. Bring all your 80s gear and come party with us. Chris and Jim Synth Monkey down at Bleachers 2.0.
There you have it, everybody. And I'll throw that back up on the screen again one more time for everybody if they didn't catch it.
Yeah.
And that's just across the river down up the hill there into Kentucky, guys. It's not a far drive from anywhere in our market here in the Hall Around Town area. And get out and see these guys Friday night, 9 p.m. And if there's a $5 cover, don't bitch at the door, because that's cheap entertainment, people. Remember that.
Gas isn't free.
Yes, exactly. And these guys are going to give you a good show. And man, I can't wait to see it sometime. I'd love to and catch what you got going on. I appreciate you being here, and we'll get you back on soon, maybe to talk about Coyote Ridge and some others, and
that'd be awesome.
And feature that, guys. And if you're watching today live right now, please hit that little share button. And if you're watching after we're live, which a lot of people are going to do, that happens at our noon shows all the time. If you're watching later in the day, if you want to drop a comment in or a question for these two, they'll be monitoring. They'll share it on their page and see those comments pop up, and you're welcome to ask anything about the band that you want to know, and I'm sure they'll fill you in on it. Chris and Jim, I can't thank you enough for joining me today. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much for what you do. We love everything you're doing, and thanks for everything you do for the musical community. It means a lot to all of us. So.
Well, thank you so much. Stay with me, if you will, after we go off the air for just a minute, guys. We're going to cut out of here. I'll join you tomorrow live at 5 with Who's Playing Out in the Tri-State, the best musicians and venues in the Tri-State featured on our show tomorrow. So join us there. It's brought to you by our friends at Heather's in Springboro. Until then, guys, get out and support live local music and the bands and venues that bring it to you. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.